Hello everyone, thank you for looking at my video, my personal financial plan. I owe you all an apology in advance. One of my little rugrats had croup, who in turn gave it to my other child, who in turn gave me some adult version of it. So if I break out into coughing fits, I honestly apologize, but I can't do much about it. So my wife and I have fairly aggressive retirement plans. My wife, especially, she wants to retire at the age of 55. She's a nurse, and the emotional and physical toll that takes on her is pretty demanding. She's only in her early 30s, but we're already starting to see kind of the physical toll, especially with her back. So 55 would be a very good age for her to get out if possible. Our plan doesn't call for her to do any extra work after 55, but having said that, if the situation would warrant it, she wouldn't be opposed to it. I, on the other hand, I'm an accountant, so with the exception of year-end when I may have an emotional toll, I really don't have any issues with my job. Certainly no physical tolls on the body. So I plan on working to 65. Depending on our situation at the time, I will do some contract or consulting work after 65, or if we're in a good position, maybe even a few years before that. But the ultimate plan is 65 for me. I came up with a amount needed for retirement, and it's just over 1.2 million, as you can see. That might not seem like a lot, and it's probably not for someone that wants to retire at 55 and 65. But I'll get into why that's a lower number later. Mainly has to do with rental properties and the like. Our expected rate of return from essentially this moment until quote-unquote the end, I calculated 5.25%. Right now I'm getting almost 25% on my retirement accounts, and my wife's getting just under 23%. So these are extraordinary returns. We're not going to get these forever, obviously. And for me, it's 100% stocks. For my wife, it's 85% stocks. But as we progress, closer to retirement, we'll start to rebalance with more bonds. Bonds obviously don't have a historical return like stocks do. And as we really get close to retirement, we'll start to move money into fixed asset type investments and CDs and whatnot, and you're really not getting any return on those. So when you average everything up, I'm shooting for a 5.25%. Our current situation, I would describe, well, as you can see, is one part not great, one part pretty good. So there's a dichotomy there, obviously. The overall picture for us right now is kind of daunting. Our net worth is actually negative, so technically we are insolvent, although it doesn't feel that way, and that's largely due to our monthly situation. I kind of break it down to a balance sheet situation for us is not great, but the income statement for us is pretty good. Our 2018 budget has us coming in at a surplus of just over $20,000 for the year. So although we're, quote-unquote insolvent, we're righting that ship very quickly. Right now our combined income is $115,000. That's growing pretty quickly as well, so that's helpful. Our retirement accounts are not great, totaling about $36,000. But again, we're ramping up the contributions to that as well. Right now, both my wife and myself have life insurance through our employer. It doesn't quite cover all of our liabilities right now, so that's an action item that we're going to have to remedy. She currently has 3 times her base pay, which is not the max allowed. She can actually select a plan that's 4 times her base pay, and when her next open enrollment period comes around, she will do that. On top of my employment, I also have a term policy. It's only $75,000. I got it very early on in my life. When I was in college, just in case something would happen, that my student loans would be taken care of. I wish that $75,000 would take care of my student loans now. Unfortunately, I think I've outpaced that. We do not have an umbrella policy right now. We don't have a lot of assets. Having said that, because the premium on an umbrella policy is so small, we plan on adding one in the near future. It's not an immediate plan of ours, but sooner rather than later, we'll probably pull an umbrella policy. So for education planning, we have two children right now, 2 boys, Easton and Ezra, for what it's worth. And we plan on paying for the first 2 years for each of their years in college, and that warrants some explanation. We will pay for the first 2 years if they attend an in-state public university. If they attend a private institution or an out-of-state university, we will only pay for the first year. The reasoning behind that is essentially a year out of state will equal essentially 2 years in state. So that's our thinking. And the reason that we're only planning on paying for the first 2 years of their education is because we firmly believe they should have some quote-unquote skin in the game. If everything is paid for, by us, I'm worried that there's no incentive for them to be efficient, to get through school quickly and properly. And so I hope that by making them pay for part of their education, that will alleviate my fear that they won't take it seriously. Ultimately, there's a lot of things that go into that, but that's our planning. Excuse me. There's that cough. So to do our funding for their education, we plan on using a 529 plan. Wisconsin's the 529 AdVest, but it's essentially a tuition savings plan. You can earn a modest return on these, and you get tax advantages by doing so. Essentially, you can pull the money out of your paycheck before taxes. So they really are an excellent way to save for your child's education. Here's the schedule I came up with to pay for our firstborn son's education. I went on the University of Wisconsin-Madison website, and I got their estimated cost of attendance for 2018-2019. Came in at just over $26,000. It was $26,003, very precise on their estimates. It included a few things that I didn't feel I needed to plan for, like transportation costs. They threw $3,000 in for just miscellaneous expenses. Essentially, I wanted to get it down to room and board, tuition, and books, and lab equipment costs, things of that nature. Excuse me. So I came up with my number, and then I thought of, how much is that tuition going to increase over the year? And this was hard for me to do. I essentially went with an inflationary tract on this. So I calculated a 3.5% tuition increase over the year, which is kind of frightening if you look at 2035 when my son Ezra should be completing his second year of college. That's almost $39,000 a year. It's just remarkable. We'll see what happens with it. We may have to adjust our contribution as time goes on, but this is the plan right now. Because, as I alluded to earlier, our situation is not that great as far as where our retirement accounts are at and where our net worth is at. We don't plan on starting this contribution for our firstborn until he's 5 years old. That will be in 2 years. So you can see I start this in 2020. But basically, to pay for the first 2 years, we have to put away just over $4,200 a year, which is, it's no small potatoes. I think we'll be able to do that okay. A lot of our debt will be paid off by then, and there should be plenty of funds to do so, but it certainly is a large commitment. As you can see, the way the plan works, we'll contribute all the way up until he graduates from high school, when he starts his freshman year of college. That's when our contributions will cease and our withdrawals will happen to pay for his education. Here's the schedule we created for our second born. As you can see, we plan on starting at the same time, year 2020. However, he'll be 3 years old. And, this is the same thing that you just saw. And the only thing to point out here is that 3.5% increase in tuition. We're looking at just under $42,000 by the time that our second born will be a sophomore. So I hope that's not the case, but all indications point to that being the case. As far as our retirement accounts are concerned, my wife, as I mentioned, she's a nurse, so she works for a hospital in Madison. So it's a not-for-profit organization. So she was offered a 403B plan, which is essentially a 401k, but for not-for-profits. The match isn't great for her. They match 100% up to the first 3%. So it's, that's not great, but it's okay. However, I put in quotes their quote-unquote profit share. Obviously, they don't have profits, but they do a profit share type payout to their employees, which is fantastic. It's based on a percent between 4 and 8%. 4 and 11%. And it's based on the age of the employee and the years of service that they've had. So my wife, for example, just received hers just a couple of weeks ago, and she's at the 5% level. So she received a payout of almost $3,000. So that really is a nice benefit to have. Excuse me. I have a 401k. We do not have any profit share where I'm at, but there is a pretty generous match. My employer matches 4% of the first 100%, and then a further 50% on the next 2% of employee contributions, which I fully take advantage of. So, we're pretty fortunate. We're actually very fortunate to have these matches and these payouts. So we take advantage of them as best we can. Right now, we're both about 6% contributions. However, every 6 months, we increase our contribution by 1%, essentially. For my wife, it's not a percent. We do a set amount, but it works out to about 1%. So, this is a way we can keep building and eventually get to that $18,500 a piece that you're allowed to contribute to these accounts. As we go on in time and pay off our debt and we have more income available to do this, we'll really ramp it up faster than 2% a year. But that's what we're doing right now, and it seems to be working pretty well. On top of that, I have an online trading account just because I enjoy that. It's not very serious. It's $4,000, so we're talking peanuts. The only reason I bring it up is I've been lucky enough to get a 43% return over the past several years, and although I do not expect to continue that, the account really could grow into something pretty sizable by the time we reach retirement. So I figured it's warranted that I mention it. As I alluded to earlier, right now our investment allocation is pretty aggressive. We're young, we're in our lower 30s, so for me it's 100% stocks. The mix of stocks is not that aggressive. A lot of it's in kind of a S&P 500 index fund, but there's some international emerging market and small cap as well. But still nonetheless it's 100% stocks. For my wife, it's about the same mix of stocks, but she's only 85% allocated to stocks. She has 12.5% in bonds, and then she has 2.5% in a guaranteed return fund. Basically bases inflation. It's something very small. We may look at that in the future. Excuse me. And then also I put future real estate in here because a large part of our retirement plan is to eventually buy a duplex. We want to buy a duplex at age 40, and then the plan is to pay that off in 15 years. So as my wife retires at age 55, and loses that income, we'll have this hopefully reliable net income from the rental property. Excuse me. Another nice thing about rental properties is you can depreciate them. So the federal guidelines allow you to depreciate your rental properties for 27 and a half years, and that really helps bring down your income taxes. So that's our plan. So we have an inexcusable situation with our estate planning. We don't have a will right now, which everyone should have a will, obviously. But in our situation, especially with the 2 children, it's a pretty bad thing that we're doing. So we plan on remedying that situation immediately. We don't have a will. We obviously don't have a trust. There's no reason for us to have a trust right now. But we do plan on having the estate, the type of estate in our future, especially as we get closer to retirement, that would warrant a trust. I plan on doing a living trust, because if all goes well, knock on wood, we'll have some small acreage and the ideal cabin up north if that all works out, and that would be a prime candidate to transfer to a living trust. So for our action plan in the short term, the immediate thing we need to do is get a will. It just has to be a basic will, but we absolutely need one. Also, we'd like to have at least 4 months of expenses and savings. We're not there right now, but we're well on our way. Ideally, we'd like a little bit more than that, but that's an amount that we can feel comfortable with. And then, as I alluded to earlier, we want to increase our retirement contributions, preferably quicker than the 2% a year that we're doing, but at least that at a minimum. And also at the end of the short term, which I define as anywhere from now to about 2 years, we would certainly need to open up our children's 529 plans. For our action plan for the median term, essentially keep paying off debt. I see the median term as a 2 to 10 year type term. So at this point, our auto loans, our credit cards, our private student loans should all be paid off. Thank goodness. We'd also like to increase our savings to 6 months of expenses. Anything beyond this, I don't think is necessary. And even in a high yield online savings account, you're not going to outpace inflation. So you're technically losing money in these. So 6 months is great. Anything more than that, you're just wasting money, in my opinion. So that's the ultimate plan. And also in this period, we should be able to do a full $18,500 of contribution to our retirement accounts apiece. And beyond that, we'd like to open up Roth IRAs, which would allow for another $5,500 apiece in contributions per year. So for our action plan for our long term, which really is, in my mind, 10 years from now, all the way until, again, quote unquote, the end. We'll continue to do that full contribution into both our retirement accounts and our Roth IRAs. But when you reach 50 years old, you can do catch up. So the way it's defined right now, for 401k, you can do an extra $6,000 a year, I believe. So we'll take advantage of that, and an extra $1,000 a year in your IRAs. So we're also going to take advantage of that. We had a later start for our retirement accounts, which is unfortunate because we lose that power of compounding interest. But the catch-up will at least help mitigate that somewhat. And obviously, as our estate grows and the needs of our beneficiaries grow, we will amend our will, and we'll certainly, like I discussed earlier, move certain assets to a trust. But otherwise, that is our plan. It'll evolve over time. But this is a good foundation for us, I believe. I apologize for the coughing and the poor sound quality. Thank you for watching my video.